All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are, Friday episode. We're going to go traditional today. We're going to do a full auto Friday. 3-4 questions. Who knows how long it's going to take? I'm going to try to stop saying I'll be brief because every time I do, it's like 35, 40 minutes. So apparently I can't be brief to include what's going on with this intro. Shit, it's already out of control. Full auto Friday, 131. Here we go. Enjoy.
Okay, got the red smoke. Gun run, north or south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke. Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now. Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. Get cleared hot. Copy, cleared hot.
Well, good morning. 4 questions for today. Here we go. Question 1. First off, thank you for your podcast. Well, second off, you're welcome. Been listening since the beginning, and I've thoroughly appreciated its evolution. You bring an objective, moderate, and often humorous perspective to an even more divisive world. I would love your perspective on an issue that has been bothering me for quite some time. A little about myself. I am from Canada. I own a sport medicine clinic/performance gym and train and rehab athletes for a living. I am pretty well connected in my local community and have built a great reputation, especially with the parents and coaches of youth sports. A good friend of mine is running for mayor of our town. He is a spectacular entrepreneur and has done very well for himself professionally. He also has a massive ego. Personally, I don't think he is running for the right reasons, as his entire political campaign is driven by ego and the need to be, in parentheses, popular. While he is very charitable among his friends, he is completely cutthroat in business. I don't believe he will serve the town well, nor do I think someone with his qualities should run for public office. He has asked me for my support publicly, and I've been avoiding the issue as I don't feel comfortable supporting him, especially in an open and public manner. I value him as a friend, as he was very supportive during my divorce. Any perspective or opinion on this would be greatly appreciated. Well, it's a timely question because, it's Tuesday. It's actually election day today that I'm writing this. And there's probably people all over the United States that are potentially asking themselves this exact same question. First off, I'm glad that he was supportive of you during your divorce. That is not always the easiest for people to do because sometimes you have to pick sides, which sucks, as if getting a divorce doesn't suck enough, that you might have to modify your social circle because, maybe 50% will go with one side, 50% of the other. Maybe it's 80-20, I don't know. But what I can tell you is that your social circle will probably leave a divorce slightly modified. And it might be, that might actually be better for you. So definitely, I was certainly appreciative of the friends who supported me through my own particular process, but that's neither here nor there. If you value him as a friend, or if you had somebody who valued you as a friend, ask yourself, flip the coin on this a little bit. If in your social circle, which is hopefully full of people that you do value, you needed open, honest, and transparent feedback. You needed to get the brass tacks. You needed to get the feedback that somebody who wasn't in your social circle may feel comfortable giving you. Would you want it? If you asked a question, if you asked somebody for their support and they felt uncomfortable, would you want them to bullshit you? Or would you want them to be an actual friend? And I've said this many times before. If you truly consider somebody to be your friend, you need to tell them the truth. Not necessarily what they want to hear. You need to tell them the truth and what they need to hear. So if you were the one asking the questions, what would you want in response? I suspect you would want an honest answer. So if you actually value this person as a friend, that's my first piece of advice. Tell him the truth. And it might be a really uncomfortable conversation, but maybe he needs to hear it as well. I know people who are very cutthroat in business and are very supportive of their friends. What I'll say is this. There's a difference between being cutthroat and being unethical. Is this person in their occupation or profession? Are they erring on the side of being ethical? You can be very black and white. You can be very binary in business. Maybe he's not interested in developing relationships on the business portion of his life. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've seen success and failure on actually both sides of that. And I'm not here to say which one is right or wrong or put a value judgment on it. But to me, it comes down to the hard line in the sand is, if I'm looking at this person and they're being unethical, first, for me, that's going to remove them from my friend group. Because I don't want to associate myself with somebody who puts up a public persona and then in real life is actually a train wreck or a really vindictive or unethical person. I want no part of that. I think life is short enough as it is. I'm not a huge, and I never have been a huge fan of having a large social circle. And that is probably one of the fastest ways to get removed from mine. But you have to ask yourself that question on your own. Do I just not like the way that the person does business, or do I not like this person? And the answers to that hopefully should frame how you deal with this individual. But it all is going to go back to, if you actually value him as a friend, you need to be honest. And if you don't feel comfortable publicly supporting this individual and you have reasons for that, if you are this person's friend, you need to tell them. That may change your friendship, but that's okay. At least your friendship is going to be built or destroyed based off of honesty, which I think is far better of a building block than bullshit. The hard conversations are, I think, the most important ones. The easy fluff bullshit ones, I mean, sure, I guess they're fun to have over a cocktail and they can be entertaining and they can help pass the time. But conversations like the one you need to actually have with your friend here are the ones that are going to, potentially shape the future of your friendship. Or, you might be at a road where you can go left and the friendship might end, and you can go right and the friendship might deepen. From a political perspective now, obviously this person is running for office, which is where this question came from. I'm sure there are some people, and maybe it's the vast majority of them, that run for political office for the right reasons. They actually want to serve the people that would elect them into office and do the best that they can for their community. I don't know. In this point in time, one of my favorite politicians is Tulsi Gabbard. And that's not to say I like all of her politics. This is to say that I like the way that she conducts herself as a politician. And I like the way that she is transparent about what she experienced while being a cog in the wheel of the government. And I say that, and the next thing I'll say is this. It absolutely scares the shit out of me when I listen to her talk. Because I'm worried that we are, as a country, at a place where the system is totally broken, and I don't know if it's possible to repair it. The people that are in power are entrenched, and there is so much benefit. It seems, from the outside perspective, I'm obviously not a politician, but it seems like there is so much desire for the people in power to stay in power, whether they just are looking for power or they're looking for monetary reward or they're looking for both. And I don't necessarily think that that's uncommon in a structure that has a hierarchy like that of people inside of the organization that have power. But I think at some point, without effective checks and balances, it breaks. And then the people in power, they no longer have any interest in serving those that actually elected them to that office. They're interested in serving themselves or their small group of people, elevating them and making sure that they are taken care of first and that everybody else is going to be taken care of second, if at all. So I say all of this to say, I guess at the end of the day, I'm suspicious of people that want to go into politics. And that's a personal issue that I probably need to work my way through because, like I said, I bet the vast majority of people get into politics, especially at the local level, to actually make a difference. It worries me. So to hear that somebody is doing this for a popularity contest, in your opinion and what you are seeing, doesn't shock me that much. And hopefully, people have the opportunity. It's one of the things I like about when, people running for office and they will actually, not that this is necessarily executed properly every time that I've seen it, but when you can go and actually question a candidate on their beliefs, and not from a moderator, but from actual people interfacing and interacting with them. It's actually one of the things that I think is really cool about podcasts. If you can get people running for office to come onto podcasts, is you have the opportunity to unpack what they think in a long form format. And my advice to hosts out there, if you're going to host somebody who is running for office in politics, is ask questions and then let them talk. And it's pretty easy to tell when it's a talking point, and then you can go past the talking point and dig into the beliefs a little bit. But people will show you who they are if you have enough time around them. And a lot of times, in political campaigns, it's all about the sound bites and actually getting that time around them. And again, I don't know. I don't have the solutions to this stuff. And I'm probably off topic when it comes to answering your question, because the advice that I gave you is really the only advice that I have. Be honest with your friend. Don't avoid this conversation. Dig into it. And at the end of the day, if it augurs your friendship in, it's not necessarily your role to convince other people of who you think this person is. Given enough time, they will highlight to the world on their own who they actually are. And maybe they'll be into office by the time that actually happens. But guess what? People don't stay in office forever, I guess, unless you're a king or a queen. And I don't know how that shit works either. So, question number 2. Here we go. This one's smaller. Let's make it bigger. The subject line on this is concealment dilemma. I feel that I handled a situation wrong at a school event. Went to my son's grade school fall festival where the kids got to dress up in their Halloween costumes and play games, etc., etc. My situational awareness was on high alert. Having a great time, but observing like we all should. So I observed a guy, seemed to look okay at first, noticed he had a shooting range t-shirt on, started to watch him, and I'm not 100%, but pretty sure he was carrying a pistol. It was concealed very well, and hard to be 100% sure. What should I have done? I did stay close without being noticed, but I didn't do anything else. I did this just in case something happened. I am a concealed carry person myself, but I know a school is a no-no when it comes to carrying. What would Andy do? I live in a small town, so please withhold my name. Signed, Concerned Parent. Well, did you handle the situation wrong? I don't know. I mean, you handled it the way that you did. Situational awareness being on high alert. Here's what I am going to caution people with. There is a difference between being situationally aware and being paranoid. I don't think anybody's situational awareness should ever hit 0, but I also don't think that people should live in this form of high alert. And again, you described it like that. I'm not saying that you were like back up against a wall, frantically moving left and right, eyeballing everybody, checking hands, checking pockets, checking waistlines. Maybe you were doing that, and if you were, I'd say, hey man, take it easy. All right, just take it easy, because there's a balance that you need to find so you don't fucking burn out. And when it comes to things like this, is it possible that something could happen at your son's school event? Yes. Is it probable that it is going to? No, it's not. The math is incredibly in your favor. Does that mean that you should ignore anything that could potentially happen because the odds are in your favor? No. I'm just saying all of this because hopefully it can help you find that balancing point, and you have this realization that I don't have to be at exactly high alert, but I also shouldn't be completely head down in the sand like an ostrich. Or, yeah, it'd have to be the sand, because how would you put your head down in the dirt, right? You would knock yourself out. Find the balance. So you notice somebody, they have a shooting range t-shirt on, and you decided that, or you saw something, you didn't decide, you saw something that made you think that they were carrying a concealed weapon. As you mentioned in your email or in your message, it's a no-no at a school, which anybody who has a concealed carry permit should recognize. It's also often a no-no at state and federal buildings. The state that I live in Montana, it's a no-no at anywhere that serves alcohol, or a bar, I should say. I believe, restaurants are okay. But bars, establishments that make the vast majority of their money by serving alcohol, it's a no-no. And it is on you, the concealed carry permit holder, to understand the limitations of that permit. It's not on the facility. It's not on the school. It is on you. You are the one who has pursued that additional step to get that concealed carry license, and hopefully the training that goes with that. or you have trained yourself, you're competent, and you understand the limitations of your permit, and you act accordingly. So it is a no-no at school. What I would say to you is, you mentioned here, I stayed close without being noticed, but didn't do anything else, just in case something happened. So you're a concealed carry person, but it's a no-no, so you probably didn't have a gun on you. My question to you was, what was your plan if something did happen? Let's say this individual presents the firearm for whatever reason. Let's go down the rabbit hole of fucking worst case scenarios, and they start shooting. I've talked about this before. People talk about active shooter situations, and one of the biggest decision points I think people should consider is distance. How far are you away? How much time do you have to make a decision? Running directly at somebody that can see you with a gun may not be the best idea. But if you're within grabbing distance of somebody early on and you can get your hands around them, and you actually know how to use your hands, or at least you could body lock somebody, take them to the ground, and other people could pile on, it can make a huge impact. So I think it's cool that you identified somebody that you thought could potentially be a threat. You put yourself into a place where you hopefully could have some impact in case something happened. But if you actually thought that this was a threat, my advice to you would be this: I would bring it up to the school and allow them to handle it, because what you're describing is a concerned parent. Another way to look at that is a concerned citizen. And I don't think necessarily confronting somebody in a public manner about this particular topic is a great idea. It's an option. I mean, I would definitely try to do it on a one-on-one. I wouldn't try to make a scene or draw any more attention to it. So that's an option that you could take. But I bet you the school has an administration. I bet you there were some administrative personnel that were there. And if you were truly concerned about this, but understand what would happen if you reported something like this and they escalated to law enforcement, right? Like, this could turn into a shit show pretty quickly. And I'm not trying to tell you not to do this. I'm just saying, let's think through the potential options here. Let's say you run into a school administrator that is extremely uncomfortable with the idea of somebody carrying concealed at the school event, and they decide to call law enforcement. Who knows what kind of officer you're going to get on the response and what kind of attitude that they're going to bring to the table? Who knows? I mean, I'm not saying that would escalate into a shootout, but you could certainly escalate this into a pretty negative situation for that individual in public around their kids. And maybe that's not what we're looking to do here. People need to make their own decisions. What I'm going to say is I advocate for following the law. Gun-free zones are really interesting, because if you restrict the ability of individuals to carry a firearm at certain locations, and you are really vocal about that, and you make a tremendous issue of that, and the people who are actually willing to follow the letter of the law abide by that, so they do not carry, and then somebody who doesn't give a fuck about the law, who has malicious or ill will and intent, decides that, what's actually the most vulnerable place that I could go? If I have a gun and I want to do the most damage possible, but I want to run into, or what I don't want to run into, are other individuals that may be armed and have the ability to defend themselves and others, where should I go? Well, a rational person would think, where could I go that would have the least amount of guns? A gun-free zone. Now, I'm not advocating by any stretch that we change policies. That's well above my pay grade. What I'm saying is, though, let's not be obscure and unaware of the reality. The most vulnerable target is going to be where the least amount of people capable of defending themselves actually are. So let's say this person was carrying. Is he in the right? No, he's not in the right at all. Is he breaking the law? Yes, he's breaking the law, and that person should be held accountable for that. But maybe this person, if they are carrying, because we're making an assumption that they were, maybe they're carrying for the right reasons. Maybe the only reason that they carry is that they want to be able to do something in the event that something actually happens and they have the ability to respond. Are they still breaking the law? Yes, they are. Should they follow the law? In my opinion, yes, they should. And people need to make decisions and weigh the pro versus con, the risk versus reward. If you choose to carry in a situation like this, and a concerned citizen or parent reports you and you have an interaction with law enforcement, well, you're going to have to deal with the consequences of that. And I guess my whole point in saying that is perhaps this individual had the best of intents, but their execution of it was poor. So I don't think that you handled the situation wrong. I think you have a variety of options, and I'll leave it up to other people to determine which ones would be optimal versus less optimal. You were situationally aware and alert enough to determine that there might have been a threat. You put yourself into a position where you could have had an impact should the threat presented itself, and I don't know what else you necessarily would have wanted from yourself. You know, the next level probably would have been a confrontation of some kind, whether it be very friendly and casual, and or it could have been all the way up to the point of being very contentious. And, you know, again, pros and cons, risk versus reward. At the end of the day, what I would say for most people in this situation, or not for most people, I'd say the best course of action is, you know, escalate proportionally. Do you need to call the SWAT team because you think that there is an individual who may be carrying concealed in a location that prohibits it? I don't think so. Your first course of action could be talking with the individual directly in a very casual manner, or go to the administration, or go to somebody in a leadership position inside of that organization and voice your concerns and let them take it from there. So risk versus reward, pros versus cons. I don't think that you handled the situation wrong at the event. Could you have done things differently? Sure. But if the situation presents itself again with the same individual and you did the exact same thing, it sounds like the outcome was neither negative nor positive. So I don't think you did anything wrong at all. And I think it's a good conversation starter about gun-free zones in general. The school one has always been interesting to me, you know, or any gun-free zone where organizations and organizations have every right to decide what they want to allow and what they don't want to allow. But look at it from the person who wants to exploit those decisions, and it's an interesting conversation. How far should we go? How far can we go? I don't have the answers to either of those, but they should be talked about. Question number 3. After you talked with John Spencer, I'd like to know how you would resist an invading force like Red Dawn. Without giving up many of your TTPs, which stands for tactics, techniques, and procedures, please share what you would do. I don't have a specific scenario, but I bet you have thought about this. You are correct in that, sir. Or ma'am. Like other scenarios one might contemplate while bored, i.e. zombie apocalypse, how to rob a bank, or how to body. Not that I've ever thought about those. Anyways, 3 questions. How would you secure your family? How would you resource your food? And how would you lay low or get after it with the invading force? Yeah, I've thought about this a little bit, but let me just tell you, I don't spend an incredible amount of time thinking about it. I've thought about it in the past, and maybe when I have some idle downtime or I watch something that gets me thinking about it, I'll think a little bit about it, but this is not something that I hang a lot of my energy on. So how would I secure my family? Well, it can be tough. You know, one of the great things about Montana is we have space and distance. And, you know, I look back at where I used to live in San Diego, and pros and cons of that as well, too. My kids' schools were actually all walking distance from where we lived. So that one, even if for whatever reason, you know, vehicle traffic, everything, the roads are totally blocked, that'd be a very easy one to secure my kids at school, and they weren't working at that time. Montana, from a tactical perspective, is great. It's got high ground, it's got cover, it's got concealment, it's got terrain, but it's got a lot of space and distance. So securing my family would actually be really tough. And a lot of that, I think, would be based on a communication plan. And, you know, how deep down the Red Dawn rabbit hole are we going to go? Is this like EMP where all communication is shut down? They shut down satellites, so therefore satellite communication wouldn't work either. Is it takeover of the cell networks? Does Wi-Fi? I mean, like, you know, how far are we going to go down this? I'm not going to go incredibly far down the rabbit hole. So in this scenario that I'm talking my way through right now, let's say that communication is still possible. Securing my family would start with communicating with all of them and deciding and dedicating a location where we would meet. That would be the first thing. Upon recognition of that something like this would happening, I think for me, where I live right now, the first move would be to identify it early and move early before the veins and arteries of transportation become clogged. Like I said, pros and cons of where I live, so it might be difficult to initially rally the family up, but once we do, we have some space, distance, we have visibility, and that's just based off of where we live. So communicate, and then I would rally the family up. How would I resource food? I don't live anymore in a place where a garden would be incredibly possible year-round without having some infrastructure in place already, like a greenhouse, the ability to heat it, light it. And again, I don't know how far down the rabbit hole that we want to go, but it's not a bad idea to have not an incredible amount. Like, you don't need to have 90 days worth of non-perishable food, but never a bad idea to restock your food supplies before they get to zero. Like, I can't remember the last time my refrigerator was actually completely empty before I went grocery shopping, or the pantry where you can keep the dry or non-perishable goods got completely empty before we went shopping. I would say we have a good amount of food kind of on standby. I don't have a greenhouse. My wife, Leah, is much more interested in gardening than I am, but we don't have that infrastructure in place. So in this scenario, if this occurred in a winter month, that would actually be out. So we would be reliant upon what we have already. What I have is freezers full of game meat. We have more than enough meat to survive. Now, if power went out, I suppose we could use a generator, unless there was some world where a generator couldn't exist. But right now, we're also going into the winter, so I actually wouldn't give a shit because I would store the stuff outside, or I'd hang it. I would find a solution around it. And then resourcing food beyond that, man, this depends on how far an occupating or invading country worked our way into the infrastructure. I mean, are we going to have to go on a fucking ambush mission to go to a grocery store? Would grocery stores still exist? I'm not sure. Resourcing food, though, for me, given where I live, I would probably, once I secured my family, then we're going to go to securing close friends as well. And from there, it will become likely a pooling of resources. I think complete and utter isolation in this scenario and situation probably wouldn't be the best, because you're going to be able to do more with more. So I would put together my own little band of merry fuckwits, and I don't know what we would call ourselves. We wouldn't call ourselves the Wolverines because that's already been taken by Red Dawn, but you get the picture. And resourcing food could be a challenge. Water wouldn't be an issue, but food could be. Hunting, would no longer become seasonal. We would definitely do everything that we needed to survive. And again, another great thing about living where I live, wild game is a possibility. Like I said, would we deviate from the seasons if needed to? Yes, we absolutely would. How would I lay low or get after it with the invading force? Man, I don't know. I don't know what I would do with that. I think I would have a really hard time just laying low and not getting after it with the invading force. I'm trying to think back on Red Dawn. Was there even a military presence at all? Like, was the military destroyed? I'm trying to figure out how the Wolverines ended up doing what they did. Were they just in an isolated and remote town and the military hadn't gotten there? I can't remember that. So let's say that the military isn't an option and it's an occupying force. Yeah, I think at some point in time, another thing about where I live is there's a lot of retired military personnel with backgrounds that are very similar to my own. It would actually be a really shitty spot for an invading force to come and try to hold up. So I would focus on the first two, securing the family, making sure we have a sustainable food source. And then from there, it would probably be time to dust off some of the old stuff, the TTPs, if you will, and do a little bit of observation, perhaps a little bit of reconnaissance, and then probably time to start fucking shit up. I don't know exactly how I would do that, because it would completely depend on, on a chessboard you can move your pieces and the other side gets to move their pieces. A lot of that would depend on the other side. Suicide missions are pretty stupid. Allowing an occupying force in this hypothetical situation to destroy everything and do nothing about it is also pretty stupid. So I would try to find a balance. Sorry, I can't give you a more specific answer. If you were here, you could ask more specific questions and I can give them to you, but that's the best that I can do on that. Go watch Red Dawn and let your imagination run wild. Last question for today. I'm in my mid-30s and live in a suburb outside of Chicago. Guns were not present in my home growing up, and I didn't have any real exposure to them until my stepdad came into my life 10 plus years ago. He had military and law enforcement experience and carried on a daily basis. Unfortunately, he passed in 2019. So I'm unable to go to him to help with this process. And sorry, I missed the subject line of the email. Hoping to get your opinion on how someone who is new to firearms, the world should get started and inform themselves. Here's my goals. To learn how to properly, effectively, and safely use a firearm in order to protect myself and others. Acquire my concealed carry license along with my mom. This was something my stepdad had hoped to do with her before his passing. I'd like to help finish what he started. We both have our firearms owner identification, FOID, cards through the state. I'm not even necessarily sure what that is. It sounds like it's a requirement to own a firearm. And then the last of the goals is to purchase my first firearm. I believe this is a good outside of my comfort zone learning experience for me as well. I've been listening to your podcast for several years now and appreciate the knowledge you've imparted about safety and storage, knowing the tools and being properly prepared and trained to use them. I want to go about this process correctly, but I am really not sure where to start. The internet is a great tool, but I feel like it's drinking from a fire hose at times. Any recommendations for a way to get started, informed, and get information that someone in my position should keep in mind? Any insight would be greatly appreciated. Well, first off, sorry about your father-in-law. That sucks because it sounds like he would have been a great resource for this. My first question would be, do you have anybody else who has a background that's like that or could potentially be a resource? So a friend in your social group that has already gone down this road and started where you are and has gotten to where you want to be. I would leverage those people first. Absent that, in a total vacuum, what I would recommend is to go online and I would research some local gun stores in the area that you live in. They're going to be a portal for a few things. They're going to be a portal for probably a place where you can have your first exposure to a firearm on a range under the supervision of somebody who works there, probably a range safety officer. It's really hit or miss. There are places that are really conducive to that and others that aren't, and that's why I recommend going online, read the reviews, read what they offer, and it's also going to give you a chance to try a variety of different firearms. Gun stores are, they're like clothing stores. Follow me here. They're absolutely nothing like clothing stores, obviously, because you're selling very different things. My point is they have a variety of options. Not everybody is the same, so they have different sizes. They have different shapes. They have different colors, and that's where the similarity I was trying to draw. It's not a one tool for everybody type of shop. So it's going to be a great place to start, and good firearms stores, especially ones that have a range associated with the firearm store, which in my experience, a good amount do. Not all of them, but you're generally going to be able to find one that has that. Will probably have educational programs to achieve exactly what you're looking for. And if they don't have one directly in the store, you can talk to them about who they would recommend. So you are going to somebody who has the knowledge that you're looking for, and maybe they can't provide you that training, but I guarantee you they will have some advice on where you could look for that additional training. So you can go there, you can try a variety of different pistols in your hand. I would worry less about the caliber to begin with and worry about how it fits in your hand. They might even have a concealed carry course that you can go through there to meet the minimum criteria, and then from there you can look at going and getting that additional training. And of course, when you're ready, guess where you can purchase your first firearm? Right there at that store that has already helped you down this educational path and journey towards where you want to be. So I think, and at least in my experience, it has been the best way to get people started, absent having somebody like you used to have, who had that knowledge inherently and could pass that along. Those are great things if you have those people in your life, but if you don't and you are interested in going down this path, you need somewhere to start. And I think the best place to start is those professional organizations that not only sell firearms, but they offer training programs as well. And then once you start down the training pipeline, holy shit. I mean, you're going to start on a static range, very linear, and depending on how much time and money you have available, you can go as deep down the fantasy rabbit hole as you want to. You could find organizations that will teach you how to clear structures. You could do long-range marksmanship. You can do shooting competitions. You could do 3-gun competitions. I mean, Go as deep as you want to, but it all has to start somewhere. Find that really good, highly rated gun store in the area and then go pick their brain. Ask a lot of questions. Ask enough questions to drive them absolutely fucking nuts. And when you have enough information and you know this path that you want to go down, you'll execute it and you'll be well prepared. And that's it. See you all on Monday.